Welcome back to Indifferently Depraved Book Club. I'm Penny Maple, and I actually got that out on the first try.
You remember to introduce the show and yourself.
And I said it right. There's a fantastic outtake somewhere of you going, nope, that's not it.
Episode number 7. Mark it down.
Yeah,
You did it.
We're past our midterms. And this week in the studio, we have a very special guest. So everybody, let's give a big warm welcome to Mr. Kenny Cooper.
Hello, everybody.
And Kenny is actually the one that chose our selection this week.
We chose The Devil in the White City. And basically, I just wanted to choose it because of H.H. Holmes. However, I did like the Chicago World Fair stuff.
Devil in the White City by Eric Larson. It was a huge bestseller maybe 10, 15 years ago, something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
Fucking hated this book.
Why did you hate the book?
Oh, so we're going to talk about the whole episode. Carla,
I know why you hated the book.
Tell me why.
Because it's for boring dudes.
I am going to 100% agree that it's for boring dudes. Because I liked it a whole lot. And yes, but we'll get into why it's boring later.
Actually, we talked about this book before, and I even said, I started this book, I plugged along 20 pages, giving it a really good, I was like, fuck this is terrible.
You know, I feel like I got to reel it in a little bit. Okay, if you like history, you'll like this book.
That's a huge caveat, and I'm not into history, and I feel like a terrible person, but every time I've tried, it's the same. This is when I decided I wanted to be informed, and I was going to look up a bunch of West Virginia history, so I went to the fucking library and got the world's most boring, dry, sawdust-ass books and sat down and trudged through like 20 pages, and I was like, I'm not this person, and I never will be.
Well, see, it blows my mind because knowing you a little bit that I do, like the glitz and the glam of the whole event and all the big shows, and they brought the Cinnamon Girls in. I mean, how do you not like that?
Now, I am going to say that I love historical things. I love anthropological things. It's not that I'm like, fuck everything that's old. I'm a trendy millennial, and I don't care about it. It's just, when I learn historical facts, I just don't learn them from a text like that. I hated history classes in school. It was misery. Like, college was terrible for me because I was being taught history by somebody who wasn't a football coach for once. And it was even harder, and I couldn't fake it at that point. So dull to me. But I learn historical facts when I read historical novels, and I was hoping this was going to be more of a narrative novel. It's not. Just like a straight-up nonfiction, third-person, boring. Fuck me. It was so terrible.
I think maybe since Kenny's a photographer, and a great one, we didn't even mention that. He took your wedding pictures. I think he has a more romantic imagination than we do. When we read it, we get bogged down in the cholera and the sewage and the descriptions of architecture, and it's boring and distracting. But he's like, oh, the imagery of the White City. It's just we have two different perspectives here. We're reading it two different ways.
Absolutely, because it is a very romantic event. And we were talking before we started recording. I looked up a whole bunch of pictures just to get a better idea of it. But I'd looked into the World's Fair before. When I was a dance student, I actually looked up a whole lot of stuff about Egyptian dance, and that's sort of when, around that era, maybe like within 20, 30 years before, so they'd started doing the cabaret dance. People are under the impression that modern belly dance is sort of based in some historical fact, and it's not. You know, it's really difficult to notate dance, and from that historical era, no, there's no evidence that any of the movements that we have today are. But anyway, so the World's Fair, the Dancing Girls, Little Egypt. I did a whole lot of research into that and sort of felt nostalgic anytime they mentioned that, of course. And yeah, it got better at least 100 pages in. I'm not kidding. There were like 3 pages where they're talking about how much sand is in the fucking ground and laying a foundation. Shut the fuck up.
Okay, but did you think, and this is what I noticed, is that, yes, you're right, you have to sludge through a lot of it. But when you get to the end, which I won't ruin the end yet, but when you get to the
No,
end,
go ahead.
I think the reason he goes into such detail is by the time you get to the end and you see how it all just dilapidates and it just goes to shit and all these people die and it's all for fucking nothing. I think that's why you get all of that rich detail in the beginning.
Those were the most enjoyable passages. Absolutely. Whenever we were talking about like people
when it all
falling off
died.
but that's when it actually opened, when the fair actually opened, they were talking about the dynamics of all the different communities they had in it. That was interesting to me.
How disappointed were you as someone who dances when you heard that the song, the da 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 da, but it's just weird that some white dude sit down with a piano and just did it real quick.
No, it absolutely makes sense to me because the belly dance is born of just like modern times, ye old timey.
But I remember being a kid, like I thought 100% for sure
That is so cute.
that's what them chicks did over there. Like somebody had a flute, they popped up out of a vase and danced all sexy. And I'm going to double down on the fact that calling them cinnamon girls was probably one of my favorite lines in the whole book.
What were we talking about before that?
See, we're talking about this text and about how boring it is. You know, and here's the thing.
Oh, right. How he picked it because it's boring.
I guarantee if this had been some kind of novel with, you know, a first-person narrative, overarching, like, story, I would have probably retained more of that shit about sewage and laying foundations.
And the horses with cholera washing ashore.
And there was a clock. There was a clock that was 120 feet tall, and it was the largest inside structure in a building in the world. Or so, everything had to be some kind of world fucking record. I was like, I get it. You're opulent. You're luxurious.
It was basically a bunch of giant phallic symbols.
Yes, the big plinth that was at the end of the fountain. I was just like, yes, it's your wiener. I see you. I get it. It's a whole bunch of fountains just spraying jizz everywhere. Yes, you're very, very manly and virile. I get it.
Did you?
Are you turned on right now?
Believe it or not, that's not really my thing. Did you? What did you think about
Appalachian witch?
What did you think about the amount of death that they throw at these things, right? And another end of the book thing, but the mayor gets assassinated.
That was whack.
And they shut the whole fucking fair down. Just like, hey, fuck it, man. We can't celebrate. We can't do shit. We can't do nothing. But when like Scottish dudes are just like dying hand over fist, building a big fucking Ferris wheel, the show must go on. But like one fucking mayor dies.
Do you think that back then it seems like death was just something that happened and people just disappeared? You know,
Unless it happened to rich dudes.
Rich
and
white
then
dudes,
everybody shut it the fuck down.
But just in general, compared to now, it seemed like maybe it even said it in the book, or maybe I was reading reviews and it said this, but it's just like at the time, if a 25-year-old relatively healthy woman fell ill and died, you would just be like, she had whatever, what is it, consumption or whatever.
Poor people pox.
Yeah, it was just nothing. People would get sick and die. I can't remember who it is at the end of the book. He had like diverticulitis or colitis, and he got food poisoning on a ship and died. Yeah. But it just shows you right there, common ailments, you know, he's just going to sit there and waste away from infection and dehydration. But
it says in the book that 2 people a day got ran over in the train station and died. I mean, it gives that statistic. That's how commonplace. Yeah, like accidental death, sudden death,
you just spray
disappearing
off the
and
rails.
presumed dead. Well, probably fell in front of the train today. I've
the
only seen
hose,
one, so
clean it up.
That's one of Holmes' one of his first women that goes missing. That's how they talk about her. They said that they asked the family, you know, have you heard of her? And they said, well, you know, we figured she went to Europe and just died. like, you know, people just be getting on boats and dying, and we thought she was dead.
Mothers have 12 children, and they just see them off into the sunset every day. Like, which one of you is going to die?
So I do have a guy question that I have to ask.
Let's hear
both
it.
of you. Is let's pretend we're both 20 years old, and you guys are moving to the big
If
city.
only.
And you see Mr. H.H. Holmes and his stunning blue eyes. And if you don't think he's attractive, just remember that he's that time attractive. Okay?
Yeah.
So, like, back then, he's a 10. It's kind of like how if there's a lot of Tudor's biscuits around, I'm not so terrible looking. So it's the same kind of thing there. Like he's good looking. So you get off the train, you're the big city of Chicago. As soon as you get off, this dude's standing there offering you a job as a secretary. He's got all this money based on these pictures and stuff. You giving him a go?
Does he have all of his own teeth?
That's a really important question. He has 5 wives already.
He's got all of his own teeth and like 20 some other people's fucking teeth. So
He's got
all
baby
the teeth
teeth
in the world.
He's got women teeth. He's got old man teeth. He just pulls his rain jacket open. It's just got rows and rows of teeth.
He's described as being so charming, I imagine neither of us could resist. Well, imagine we're 20 and not bitter old hags that we are.
I mean, even when I'm like was closer to 30 than 20, there were times that I was like in a situation or halfway into a situation where I was like, what are you doing? This is dumb. And I think that not everyone's smart enough to fucking pick up on everything. And not everyone's smart enough to act on the things that they pick up. You know, we've talked about this before, the inclination socially to keep going along with things when you're uncomfortable because you don't want to be rude.
You two would be like more hardcore than some dudes back then because through TV, through radio, through books, like we're calloused. Like all of us are fucking
We know better.
rough. Yeah, we know better. But back then, so like think back to a more innocent time.
The 80s? When
Well,
6-year-olds walked themselves to school?
But yeah, I guess
when
that's
you just
what I'm saying.
assumed that like the village is a safe place and you send your 7-8-year-old kid out and they can walk back and forth to school every day.
But
But no one does that
yeah.
anymore.
But it's so. This was when, like I think they said after the Chicago day that they had, one of the bigger days they had at the fair, there was 19 kids left in the pit, whose parents came and got them the next day. But like they probably walked around and then were just like fuck it and went home. Like somebody will take care of them. Like so this was that time. So like, I don't think that people back then would have ever thought that some dude would have any kind of like malintent.
No, but they have to know because they said in Chicago that people were, if a man went missing, they assumed he'd been robbed and murdered. If a woman went missing, they assumed that she'd been raped or murdered.
Yeah, but these girls were coming from out of town, the ones that he was attracted.
You got to also think this is not long after, we did the whole Western, the whole gold rush shit, and we've established America and we're somebody now, but like shit is wild. It is wild. Like one of the big selling points of the World's Fair that people started to be like, this is really fucking cool, I'm into this, is because it was safe to walk the streets of Chicago at night. That's what it says in the text. They hired like twice as many people to own the police force or private police force and the Pinkertons and all this shit. They were actually trying to prevent crime rather than waiting for crime to occur and addressing it. So this is really a big switch in America. We haven't really talked about this. It is a confluence of a whole lot of shit. It's just like we're going through right now with, the whole modern age that we have with our level of technology. It was just blossoming left and right there.
I still think nobody expected that a dude had a shoot in his house and was roasting bodies in a kiln, though.
But here's the thing. I think that's largely, I was researching this, and a couple places that I read, like, everyone's going to say all that stuff. There's no historical documentation that supports that. When the factual documents that I read, he did kill people. He did build that crazy-ass building. But when they had found, like, the teeth of the little boy, his Peitzel, his sidekick
Lackey.
guy. Yeah, his lackey. So he was on that whole thing at the end there, but before he was apprehended with Peitzel's wife, who had 2 of the kids, and he had 3 of the kids, and he killed 2 of the girls and buried them in a house somewhere. He buried them. And then the little boy he still had, but he took him to a house they rented in Vermont, bought like a stove, and he ended up burning him in that. Well, when the cops finally closed in on him and got him, and they were holding him in jail for stealing a horse in Texas while they frantically tried to put some kind of physical evidence together. And they searched the murder hotel, the quote-unquote murder hotel, and they didn't find any physical evidence there at to submit at the trial. That's
He
why.
lied about everything.
Yeah, and there's no evidence that there's no historical documentation or references to like the torture devices.
But they had the
He certainly
where the gas went into the rooms and stuff. Like they did find the the office that he had,
I'm
where
going
he
to
turned
say-
into the gas valves and all that.
Yeah, I want to have to say I want to see a primary text on that, and I want to know where it's from because it's just an American tall tale.
Well,
He
I know
did
old boy
kill
wrote about
people.
it. The guy that wrote the book Depraved, and the guy that writes the books on was it Ed? He wrote one on Ed Gein and Albert Fish, and then he did this book on Holmes called Depraved. I know that he cites it.
There are actual texts that were written maybe within 30 years of what happened, and it's referenced a lot. It's not supported by like the guy that wrote this book. He used a lot of different sources. He did use the trial evidence. If you'll notice, I think in the book it mentions them building things and having a gas outlet in an odd place, but it never references a murder that he completed with it. That one does. The Devil in the White City does say that the hotel operated as a hotel, but what I read was that there was no proof that it ever actually operated as a hotel.
Well, the building burned down too. I know that
But that was
gonna
after.
destroy a lot of
But
it.
he didn't do that. But like I said, it was investigated at the time that they brought him to trial, and they were trying him for the murders of Peitzel and Peitzel's children and his, I think his wife. Maybe did she actually get killed? No, it's just the two little girls and the boy. Anyways,
But they can't even get a number on like what he killed.
No.
He said in his memoirs that
Over
he killed like
200.
20. He said that he killed 27. But then the Chicago Police Department came out and said that he probably killed like 200 because
he claimed 200, and that's
in his memoirs he said 27, but this was like his third confession, and a lot of people think he was still trying to.
a lot of the things that he confessed to. It was very quickly proven not to be true.
Right.
So you can't trust anything that he said.
I don't
I
think
don't-
he ever said anything that was true.
No, and I don't think that you can attribute 200 murders to him for sure.
I read that he said 27, but when the police investigated, they found several of those people were actually still alive.
Yeah, they were. So I love the idea of a murder hotel with chutes and torture devices and stuff, but we don't really actually have proof that that's.
But the fact that he made up all this shit and defrauded so many people, like he was a con artist as well, that's all just part of how fascinating the story is, really, regardless of what's true.
His big thing is a bigamist and a con man. Absolutely.
What did you all think about the way he killed people? Because he almost kills people in the way a Black Widow would. Like he has a very feminine approach to murder.
And that's the thing about Devil in the White City is I don't know what he's extrapolating from, but he said compared to Jack the Ripper, who was his contemporary, that the Ripper was obviously all about the viscera and the blood and the intimacy and like eating parts of them, but he wanted the build up to it, the enticement, making women leave their spouses and take their children from their husbands and run away with him or whatever, and just deceiving them and getting them to trust him and reveal all their confidences, and then to slowly to feel their life drain away. That's what he wanted. He wasn't into like, oh, I want to skull fuck you and like build a fucking pair of leggings out of your skin. That's not what he's into. He just wants to betray somebody.
I think that kind of plays into the whole compulsive liar thing. Like it's a fantasy. It's real in his head. Like he wishes he had a chute where he could send little bodies down and have them burned up. It's all part of his imagination. And I think that is a big part of it for him, like you were saying. It's not the violence. It's not the killing. It's the thought of being this killer is more the appealing part. And it makes him different from like a Jack the Ripper, regular sexual sadist. And I think the book, even though it wasn't my cup of tea, I think it does a good job of expressing that theme through the writing style and talking about the culture of the time and like what a gentleman he was, how charming he was.
Let me try to talk about the book without just shitting all over it. You have twin narratives that are being played out in an alternating chapter by chapter thing, and it's the story of Herman Mudgett, aka H.H. Holmes, and his evolution from a wee tyke up to this prolific serial murderer. And then you have a story running beside it about the head architect for the Chicago World's Fair, Columbian Exposition, whatever the actual title is. And it's kind of a prick tease because it feels like there's going to be, if it were a fiction book, they would somehow meet and have interactions or whatever. But as a scholarly text, I kind of waited for some kind of thesis to really emerge from that, and I didn't really get a strong one. It was just two men growing up to be very powerful in different ways.
See, I thought it was H.H. Holmes and the fair, not H.H. Holmes and the other man. That's what I thought the parallel was, like building it on the shifty sand in the shitty place, and even though it looks good, it still all goes to hell. That was kind of more what I got from laying the stories side by side like that.
I thought that the main point was how the glitz and the glam, it kind of makes me think of modern society now, because this was before the middle class boom, and now we're post middle class. So we're once again like two classes of people.
Yes, that's a very good point.
And so back then you had it was striking how bad it was. And then you have like the Brady Bunch era where middle class got like a little bit of a little bit of headway, and now we're back to once again being like polarized by like you're either really fucking rich and you're the guy that's getting your name put on all the buildings while the poor people are building them,
or you're really scared about how you're going to
right, or you don't know where the
week.
fuck you're going to get your food from. But I thought what it was you had all these guys, they just wanted their name to be like to live on forever. I mean, even when they go into post-mortem, these guys have like coliseums built to put their fucking corpse in because they want to be important even in death. He told the story that lied underneath, which was just like all the horse shit they had to go through and how everybody died. And like, so what it was is you had the facade, which was the fair, and then you had the underneath, which was like all the crime and all the bullshit. And then you had the same thing going on with Holmes. You had this guy that was doing the same thing that the fair people were doing. And those dudes, whether they like it or not, and it is a romantic era piece, but whether they like it or not, all of them were also monsters in their own way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, well, maybe we shouldn't talk such shit about the passages on the sewer because it's a very, very obvious parallel, for all of the sewage and shit that's running out through this town and into their own water source.
I told you the sewer was my favorite part.
They probably had a big red balloon by it. I just loved it. It was just like a big dick measuring contest. They were so fucking mad at Alec Eiffel for building that goddamn Eiffel Tower. They were
pulled
like,
out too early.
They were like, we have a plan for a really great tower. And he's like, we can't do a tower. He already did it. We're going to do something else. We'll do a big wheel. Get two of them beside each other and it could be balls. But think about that in a time when people just didn't know what a fucking Ferris wheel was because it wasn't invented yet. How fucking pastoral is that? And just people coming from, the fucking Dust Bowl, in their best overalls to gawk at all this opulence.
I mean, it's they have a tie-in because they talk about how Walt Disney, his dad, helped with the fair. Like he came, he checked it out and did all that. And
they name dropped Frank Lloyd Wright.
Yeah. They name drop everybody in this story.
Yeah.
Like, but what you said there, okay, I've been to Disney, and I was like, oh, I'm not gonna like Disney. I don't care. And then as soon as you get to Disney, you're like, oh, okay, this is amazing. Like, everything here is perfect. So that's the closest thing I have to
I thought about
what the
Disney.
World Fair would be.
I thought about Disney when we were reading this. I was like, if they had just had their heads out of their asses and had some foresight, they could have made it permanent.
Yeah, it could have stayed there.
But that wasn't a concept for people because fairs were traveling, carnivals and all that. They didn't have the concept of an amusement park.
But that's essentially what Epcot is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Villages. Yes. It's a very clear blueprint for Disney.
Are you a little bit jealous? Because I'm always jealous of this thing where you get to discover new things. Because we're born in the, it's either happened and we know it's there, or we're going to die before we get to see the cool shit. Like, before we get to see, like, what Mars looks like.
Thanks for bumming me out, dude. Fuck.
I'd rather read about the sewer.
As you were saying about all the people that were just cannon fodder and just died. Yeah, it was horrific. No one cares about them.
No, still nobody does. I mean, we've talked about that with modern serial killers and like victim selection.
There were several passages, not just workers, but also people that were attending the fair.
Yes.
That were victims of some kind of terrible accident. And that's why I don't ride carnival rides. A year ago, Mr. Kenny Cooper, he and I went to the goddamn Hurricane Carnival.
It's like a traveling carnival, yeah. I literally trusted nobody that was running any. But remember that one guy, he acted like he Like we want a new car because he kept letting us go over and over on the Ferris wheel, but you wanted to get off anyway.
Oh yeah, I was in hell. I don't like any of that shit. But I got on the Ferris wheel for you, that rickety, miserable up there, taking pictures. But we made some cute pictures.
Yes, we did.
But it's just funny that a year ago we were on a Ferris wheel, and here we are talking about
synchronicities.
it is synchronicity.
I thought you would make fun of me when I mentioned that, but I went ahead and mentioned it anyway. Okay, so I do got to ask you guys, like, as far as the stuff that was there, I'll hand the mic over. What was your favorite thing that came out of the fair? Because all we've done is talk about like how much we hate hate everything.
Maybe the belly dancers. That's a good one. I know. I think they mentioned sausages and sauerkraut. I love that.
Well, you know me. Definitely love the sausages. You know, I did like that part of it. I'm sorry we've been so mean about your book. Can I play this card and say it's a good book, but I didn't like it, honey?
Absolutely. If you like really boring history shit,
Okay, but hold on.
you're gonna love
Fucking
this book.
cream of wheat.
That's such a hillbilly thing to eat. My grandma used to make us cream of wheat and cocoa wheat. So-
Juicy fruit.
So gross. Juicy fruit's okay.
Okay,
Throwback.
Quaker oats.
Oh yeah, that's all right. Yeah.
But I mean that's huge. Quaker oats,
Huge.
shredded wheat.
Disgusting.
It's pretty terrible.
It's really bad.
Aunt Jemima.
She's great.
Okay, you know it wasn't a black lady that was making the thing there either. Viennese sausages.
Disgusting.
Yeah. Okay, the Ferris wheel. Do we like the Ferris wheel?
Yes.
No.
So we okay. You don't even like this. Oh. Elongated coins.
I know you like those.
What? Like the ones
the
you smash?
souvenir ones.
You smash on a fucking train around? I mean, I'm indifferent. I don't have one.
Impossible to win over.
Huh.
Okay, how
Belly
about
dancers.
fucking lights? Do you like lights?
I don't want to fuck them. What do you mean lights? They already had lights
I know,
invented.
but this was the first. This was when they did the.
Oh, that's right. Westinghouse won in the bidding war against General Electric.
See, look at
See,
that.
I'm going to get like an 85% on this quiz.
You are definitely the smart
I
one
missed the
between the
pennies.
two of us. Okay, then they had the music at the fair.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's good stuff.
Anything out of the performances
Like-
that you liked?
Yes. Like I said, the belly dance stuff is really cool. I'm sure there was all sorts of crazy shit. Annie Oakley and, Bill Cody. That's exciting.
Abducting people and murdering them is cool.
That's pretty cool.
That was going on.
Yeah.
Okay, Wild Bill.
Pinkertons are cool.
Well, Pinkertons are super cool, but Wild Bill was pretty fucking cool. He
He's a
ended up
cool
being
dude.
a really nice guy.
But he was really old.
But he bought all those kids. Okay, ageist.
Oh, yes, I am.
Did you? I liked him, but fuck him, he's old. But no, he bought all those kids tickets.
Kids, what? That's great. That's really sweet.
Oh my god, I didn't realize the hatred that you had for the book until now. Okay,
I like how the book described psychopaths, by the way.
in what way?
What was the doctor? What was his name? Crinkly, something like that. And if somebody was,
Keeler or some of the CL.
yeah, and if there was like a specimen, a person that displayed like really like absolutely do not care about other people. It's all about me and advancing my agenda. They call him like Keely's psychopath.
Yeah. Whatever his name is.
It means you know,
Hillary.
super textbook psychopath.
Yeah.
I like that.
I can lie to everyone's face and I don't give a shit about anything.
There's a spectrum that it lies on, and like when you get really close to this fucking outlier end of the psychopath spectrum, that's creepy as shit, man. That's when you get some really weird stuff going on. And I'm kind of like ascribed to the nature and nurture model. I think it's just like a loaded gun.
H.H. Holmes said he was born that way. Couldn't help being a killer any more than a poet could help singing.
I wish that we had reliable information about his childhood, because that would be fucking fascinating.
How much do you buy into the story about the classmates throwing him into the place with the skeleton? I mean, yeah, I'm calling bullshit.
Yeah, like
but
you can't see. I'm making this big jerk off motion. It's a bunch of shit. It's not true. It's not true. He made it all up.
okay, but they have like product killers and then they have process killers. He seems to have been a process killer, but just like made bank with like the product. I mean, the guy made good money selling skeletons. Like, How hardcore is that?
He flipped skeletons,
That's I don't.
just like you flip houses.
Right? Did you
Kitty.
think that there's a modern day like who's the closest person that we have?
Who would you say is his biggest parallel that we have in the modern age? Because I was sitting here thinking,
I mean, as far as like a success model and what he was striving to appear to be, he's got a lot of Bundy.
yeah, okay, Bundy, but Bundy,
Is dirtier.
yeah, he was obsessed with possessing the corpses, and he would go he buried them so he would stop coming, and he still went back and dug them up, and
Yeah, H.H. Holmes so neat, tidy, chloroform, and all this stuff.
it's more an angel of death kind of thing, but it's also tied. It really is a Black Widow. It's like the Black Widow baby farm model because you're doing it. You're getting a profit out of it. Sorry, you get a profit out of it in addition to the actual act of killing people. So you're getting a kick out of them both ways.
Do you think, and that's where I was getting at earlier with the Black Widow, is because he always figured out a way. Plus, I like the idea that as soon as the guy met you, he'd see if you wanted to sign a life insurance policy. Yeah, I mean, he would have somebody sign, like basically they signed their life away when they did it. So if you didn't sign it, you were good to go because he couldn't get any money out of you. But as soon as you signed it,
You're fucked.
you're done.
Yeah.
Like that's what got me is because he's all the killers. He's like all of them. He's like Process. He's a Product. He's like a Black Widow. And so I don't know. Do you think that he started as a person who just wanted money, and then maybe he got his jollies off and
It's like Carla was saying. I think he was so close to a something psychopath, like a pure psychopath, that he was just like, well, this is the world that I'm in. I'm out to get whatever I can out of it. He didn't mind killing people. I think he discovered that he actually kind of enjoyed it. Like, I think he ended up starting to do it just for the benefit, the financial benefit. And he was like, I bet I can do this. And then he was like, actually, that was kind of cool. I actually liked doing that more than, I think he was surprised at the not minding becoming, I really fucking love it.
Like, to be a master manipulator, you have to have an exploiting other people gene. Otherwise, you would feel guilty about treating people like that. So I think it's just a manifestation of, yes, at first he's exploiting them for money, but then it's just a manifestation of wanting to have control and power over other people. I can even trick you into letting me kill you and making money off of it. I think it's kind of an extension of his ego and that kind of...
Look what a fucking genius I am. I'm going to make you leave your husband, and then I'm going to impregnate you, and you are so fucking dumb. You're going to walk into a room and see like 10,000 knives and lay down and think, oh, he's just going to help me by giving me an abortion.
yeah, I mean that's a highlight worth hitting. Is not
That's an
only did
intense
he
scene.
talk his lady into letting him perform the abortion, they did it on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, she had to have been fucking dignitized completely.
That's another thing I was going to hit on. This dude was laying some pipe.
He was.
I mean,
Like, he put his dick in everything.
and to the point that like as soon as he got a new clerk, he was banging him.
There's that one line in the book where he's the first lady that he seduced. He's like, well, there are usually rules to courtship, but I guess not in Chicago.
Okay, so that's my other guy question. I was really curious about this from you guys. Is do you kind of all right? Because I'm definitely the only romantic in the room when it comes to like the way I look at. Do you kind of like the idea of how courtship used to be, like how?
No, I don't like the idea of any of that fucking gender politics shit.
No.
back then. This was
Don't
terrible.
think of the gender stuff. Like, let's say everything is equal, and it's still not fucking equal.
Okay, what do you
Hold
mean
on.
courtship?
I misspoke. I know better than to bring anything close to this up to you.
No. This is good. This is good internet. Let's go.
All right, but so now I'm not saying that. I'm saying let's pretend we live in a world where things are. They're still not equal, but they're more equal now than they were in 18 whatever.
Okay,
the
you can
fuck.
skip to the point. It's fine.
Okay, but I'm right about that. It's
All
better
right,
than
it's
what
a little- yeah, it's a little
like
better.
you're
Let's
allowed
go.
to have a job and be a lawyer and
Oh,
shit
thank
like
God!
that.
I can have a credit card.
Right, you can do all that. You can have things in your name. You can. I'm gonna listen, Carla. Pull my foot out of my ass.
No, you're fine. You're doing a great job.
But anyway, I'm saying, isn't there a thing now, like when you look at I guess it's the innocence. the innocence of everybody. Like when they go to the fair, I know that's what got fuckers killed.
Nobody's
but
innocent
like
back
I know,
then.
but they weren't innocent either. But they were innocent in the way that, like, you know, a fucking cap gun was cool, and like holding the door open for somebody was cool, and there was like all this shit. Like,
But they were all still attuned to the technology of their time. That's the thing that we're missing.
Yeah, but now, okay, I know when I was growing up, everybody said it was the 3-date rule. And that's still when I was growing up, and I'm only 36. So, like, you had, like, the 3-date rule. Like, people were like, well, you don't try anything on a third date. Yeah, I know fucking nobody did it. But it was, like, a thing that you thought
That's
you were...
just an old wives' tale. Carla, come, you got to hop in here.
No, but hold on
3-date
with
rule.
the real quick, with back then...
I don't even need a date.
If you would have been... I know, but if you would have been... But, like, you would have actually had to get to know the person... And you would have had to get to know, like, some of the people around them and all that before you were, like, in their house, or people would have fucking, like, burned you like a witch. Like, you weren't supposed to be going over to, you know, HH's house unless you guys have...
I don't know. Oh, okay. I see. Men and women unchaperoned, alone, not in a public place. Okay. I don't know. I don't think it's a... I think you're wrong on all aspects.
I think they were always fucking 1800s, 1700s, 1300s.
100%.
Right in the sewer.
According to the historical
On the
novels.
horse in the sewer.
Yes, that's why everybody was dying from back alley abortions and drinking pennyroyal tea.
No, I think all of us poor folk were fucking. Like,
The
we
upper
were
class
all
were too.
fucking.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the upper
Have a
class.
weird inbred
upper
babies.
class dudes were fucking the cinnamon girls that they paid for.
They were
from
fucking
the,
everybody because
right,
they were rich.
Right.
I'm going to tell a boring history story
Let's hear it.
to go with the theme of the book. Okay. So, no, it deserves to be shat upon. However, it reinforces the point that people are always trying to fuck.
Mm-hmm.
So I was watching the Antiques Roadshow, and I learned about this concept where, you know, your dude that you were courting would come over to the house, and it was really cold, so he'd want to be under a blanket with his lady, and they made these special walls that they would put between them called bundling boards. So they had to wrap them up in a blanket with a fucking, like, sheet of plywood between them
This sounds Victorian.
because they were always trying to fuck.
Is it Victorian?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, you had a tablecloth because it hid the legs of a table because men would be aroused
By
by the
looking at
shapeliness
legs.
of a leg. Listen, even when I was 14, I wasn't horned up enough to fuck a table. You know what I mean? Like, but okay, I'll reword it. How's this? Do you at least miss the idea that people were where they were at? Like, there wasn't all the Instagram shit and the Facebook shit and the social media shit. So, like, your interaction with someone, by rule, was way more intimate and, like, way more important than what it is now when nothing has substance, nothing fucking matters. Back then, like, whoever you met, like, that's who you were around.
I think what you're missing with me is that I don't want to be intimate with people. So I love the Instagram era. I like the periphery, the superficial, and at the same time, like, if that's the depth I'm comfortable with being social with people, then that's my fucking right, and you don't need to judge me.
I don't like regular socialization or internet socialization.
Yeah, we're bad at it, so we don't like it.
I would prefer a pen pal in the 19th century.
Pen pals are
Yeah.
the shit. Let's be pen pals, Carla.
No.
Okay. See, and I'm not a nostalgia person. Like, I think that's ultimately what it is. Like, I like historical stuff, and I like fashion, and, like, I like to read a book, a good one.
I'm not nostalgic really at all, to be honest.
You
but
sound nostalgic.
I know it sounds nostalgic. I guess what I miss is people having to have actual relationships.
People weren't. They did the thing is they didn't. I think that's another fallacy.
Did you listen to the letters, though? Anytime the guy writes home, it's like this. Now, these were private letters, okay? So he wrote these letters, like the guy that ran the fair. When he wrote his old lady a letter, it was like, oh, I miss you so much, and I can't wait to get home to you, and blah, blah, blah. And, like, I mean, it was like so romantic. Even, like, H.H. Holmes in his lying-ass memoirs,
But
he
that's with
had,
your-
like, a richness.
That's with your partner.
Yeah,
Of
but
course,
like,
we're going to have intimate relationships.
but you're not gonna get that. You're gonna be like, hey, you coming home, lady? Hey, we gonna fuck? Yeah, you know I've been missing you. You know what I mean? That's what you're gonna get. But like back then, it's like,
maybe
oh,
it's because I have a long distance relationship, but I do text Scott like 10 times a day. And I'm like, I love you so much. I can't wait to come home. And then I make him send me pictures of the cats and my plants and stuff like that.
But don't you think that there was a since it was an illusion, because now the illusion is like you're going to get Insta famous or some shit. You're going to get Insta famous or something. But back then the illusion is that you could have like
You hate the youth and you hate Instagram. I think that's my big takeaway.
no. I mean, I do. I hate modern society. But I
I
also
just hate society.
I just
They're
hate-
all bad.
But the reason I hate it is because you guys say you're not good at it, and I just say that if you don't think you're good at it, it's because people fucking suck now. Because everybody's bland. Everybody's a mixture of. It's a copy of a fucking copy.
But they sucked back then too.
Yeah, but Tim Ferriss, his whole thing was he was going to have a Ferris wheel.
Yeah.
How fucking dedicated did he have to be to have a fucking Ferris wheel? Okay, now he'd be too busy posting pictures of his abs to even fucking obsess about it. People obsess.
That's not
with
true.
stuff.
Look at Elon Musk.
Yeah.
He's out there dreaming. He's out there doing
he's
things.
out there making bukus of fucking cash.
Yeah.
Okay, but I guess people were dreamers back then.
I like that the one female architect that made the quote unquote women's building made 1/10 the amount that the male architects did. And I actually read recently the dream pop band Haim. They were talking about how they fired an agent once because they were playing a festival and they found out they were getting 1/10 of what the male performers were making. So
Yeah, in the book, it's like, can she, like, make a building? Are you sure that's a thing?
he literally wrote, it was a letter that was quoted as a historical text. It's like, she actually did it all by herself.
Yeah, she'd have an affidavit from a dude saying, no, I've seen her do some architecting. She can do it.
She did it real good.
Okay, and what do you think? What do you think H.H. Holmes would have done if he was an ugly fucker? Because he wouldn't have been able to do all the murdering of the hot ladies and all that stuff. So like, if he
would have worked whatever angle he had.
Yeah, I think H.H. Holmes would have worked whatever angle he had. Because really, H.H. Holmes wasn't even the angle he had. He was
No.
fucking Herman Mudgett from Nowheresville, nobody. And he made up this character of this refined gentleman, like said he was descended from a lord or what the fuck ever.
In a way, he's Gatsby. He's a self-made man. He's a ghoulish Gatsby. Even more than the architects that were, they seem to be these people from upbringings that really lifted them up and gave them this huge advantage in society. And they had, the audacity and bravery to just be like, I'm the best that ever was, like no one was before. But H.H. Holmes, he kind of came up from nothing. He really bootstrapped it right into the murder hotel.
I like we was talking about the equivalents, like the modern day equivalent, and I don't think there's a modern day equivalent to the fair, but I also don't think there's
The internet is the fair.
Yeah, I guess it is, but see, it's not real and it's separated from reality. I just think Holmes. I don't think there's been anybody as accomplished and been a fucking psychopath.
I would say probably Israel Keyes is the best one that I could compare him to.
It's sort of like Jack the Ripper, though. I think like he's the standard of that type.
He is. He's an icon. He, as much as the World's Fair, stood up and really was a symbol of the times. And that about wraps it up for this week. So I hope you all enjoyed it. I sure didn't. Check it out and give it a read yourself. I want to thank Kitty Cooper.
Thanks for having me.
I'm Penny Maple.
Bye, bitches.
And now it's time.